Good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. First item of business, please click the bell underneath this video. This will get notifications to you of every new video. I think a lot of people aren't receiving notifications of my videos, and so that will ensure you're getting those notifications. So click the bell underneath the video, and if it's not clicked underneath any of my videos, make sure you click that. Make sure you stay subscribed and stay notified of all the videos. We're living in significant times, so I think we all need to stay connected, and that's one way to do it. All right, this couple of articles here about the escalation and the potential war with Iran, which seems to be brewing, seems to be imminent. Iran accelerates production of enriched uranium as tensions rise. This is from Yahoo.com. Iran has accelerated the rate at which it's enriching low-grade uranium fourfold, weeks after threatening to gradually scale back its commitments under the 2015 deal. It says the semi-official Tasnim news agency quoted an official at Iran's Atomic Energy Organization as saying that Iran had increased its output of 3.67% enriched uranium as of Monday, and that the United Nations watchdog had been informed. So I guess everybody knows now. Tehran has already announced it stopped complying with the 300 kilogram cap. They're over 300 kilograms of, I believe it's just yellow cake, effectively it's called, enriched uranium. And they are proceeding further. They are proceeding to weapons grade uranium. And so that is the threat. Not only is it a threat, but they're doing it now in retaliation for the sanctions that are happening. Not only that, but you also have Iranian proxies, of course, causing Israel all sorts of trouble. And so the question is, what did Israel blow up in or around Damascus in Syria? And this article from the IsraelWire.com gives us some detail. The Damascus pronouncement: "Behold, Damascus shall cease from being a city; it shall become a heap of ruins." That's from Isaiah 17. That's the prophecy we speak of a lot of times, and it's tagged on this article because this is the lead up to that eventuality. Syria accused Israel of 2 attacks inside Syria in less than 24 hours. As usual, Israel refuses to comment. The Syrian news agency quoted an unnamed military source saying Friday Syrian air defenses reacted to hostile targets coming from the Quneitra region on the edge of the Israeli Golan. It says that the strikes were targeted the area of Kiswa, where there are storage sites. And I spoke of this article the other day, not this article specifically, but another article. But this provides a bit more detail. So there were storage sites for Iranian and Hezbollah forces allied with Syria's government. So Israel is continually striking weapons depots, manufacturing facilities that Iran has set up, or its proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, in the Gaza. So Israel is continuing to strike these. And one key note is that Russia is still not protecting Damascus from these strikes. They could if they wanted to, but there's still an agreement on the table to not do anything about it. So Sana reported a similar strike Saturday night, saying Syrian military intercepted hostile targets coming from the direction of the occupied territories. And so that's kind of the situation there. Russia's not doing anything about this, which is significant because there's going to be hooks in the jaw of Gog-Magog, something that's going to draw them into it. They don't want to go to battle. That's kind of the point of the description of Gog-Magog, that the leader, Gog-Magog, Gog from the land of Magog, doesn't want to go to battle against Israel. But they're pulled into it. They're drawn into it. The hooks in the jaw. That's exactly what Ezekiel 38 says. And so they're drawn in it. They're holding back right now because of some agreement with the U.S. and threats by the U.S. Saying that, if you use your air defenses against Israel, we will retaliate. Russia doesn't want that. Russia doesn't need a war. But there will come a time when they do. This is from jpost.com. U.S. Army officer, here is how the military could confront Iran. And this is Pregent's map, this is from Hudson's think tank, map shows a variety of pressure points where Iran, its allies, and proxies are present. I tried to look for this one from the Hudson Institute. I could not find it. It may be buried in a video there. But the U.S. has many options to confront Iranian regime. A senior fellow at Hudson Institute, Pregent, published a map Monday that shows the way U.S. can strike at Iran without needing to put any boots on the ground, and so this is significant. This is what they would prefer. They would prefer simply an air battle with Iran by way of ballistic missiles, airstrikes, etc. They don't want to go into Iran with boots on the ground. That's a lot more money, a lot more chance of trouble, etc. I made this to counter the narratives of war with Iran, he says. In recent days, amid rising tensions, Western media have argued that Donald Trump and his national security advisor Bolton are rushing into conflict. Rumors have swirled of plans to send 120,000 U.S. forces, and I've mentioned that a couple times. The U.S. administration has downplayed these stories and said it is not seeking war. And so Pregent said, I wanted to show you where and how Iran could hit the U.S. and allies and what a measured response would be. So this is a think tank saying, what could the outcomes of the war be? What could be the first strikes be? In the last week, 4 oil tankers were sabotaged in the Gulf of Oman. And this is all, possible trigger points for a greater strike. The U.S. has warned that any attack by Iran or its proxies would result in retaliation. So I guess we're expecting retaliation at this point. So what might retaliation look like? Well, a Pregent's map shows a variety of pressure points. Its allies and proxies are present. Iran is spread out over a huge arc that begins in the Bab el-Mandeb Straits area all the way to Syria and Lebanon, starting in Yemen. It says U.S. allies, particularly Saudis and Emiratis, could strike at the Houthis. That's in below Saudi Arabia, in Yemen. In addition, U.S. or allies could strike at the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in the area. If Americans targeted Iraq, the U.S. could hit back at any Iranian-backed Shiite militias in Iraq. So it goes on. If Iran seeks to disrupt the Straits of Hormuz, this is the key piece here, near the UAE, United Arab Emirates, the U.S. might respond by striking Iranian naval vessels linked to the IRGC. And we know that Iran has shipped missiles down into that region. They're holding them. They haven't used them yet, but it could be for a retaliatory strike if something should happen in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. has already designated the IRGC as a terrorist organization. So based on that basically gives them permission to strike. So it could conceivably target any IRGC elements as terrorists effectively. The U.S. has many other options on the table. For instance, it can disrupt Iran's land bridge. This is going through Iraq. And remember that diplomats were called out of Iraq and areas around there. Remember also, non-emergency personnel were also pulled out of the Iraqi embassy. And so people are pulling out there. So hitting that land bridge of Iraq could be a way to stop Iran from pushing weaponry to Hezbollah, to Hamas, to Syria, and really cut that out. And then they would be confined to basically air flights into Damascus. And if the air flights into Damascus are the last way that Iran can get weapons to its proxies, you could easily see why Israel would want to take out Damascus, and specifically Damascus airport, to prevent Iran once and for all from getting weapons and equipment and personnel into Syria. So you can see it all coming together. You can start to understand why Damascus is important, why Isaiah 17 is really a key piece for Israel to take out, to prevent and to minimize the threat of Iran against Israel. It says, in another scenario, Iran might seek to construct a nuclear weapon using the uranium that it seeks to enrich. In this case, Pregent says that the U.S. could hit undeclared nuclear sites that are outside the 2015 deal. A 72-hour air campaign would set Iran's nuclear program by a decade, set it back by a decade. So you talk about the revealing of the peace plan, and this could very well be what they decide to do. A 72-hour strike on Iran, which would take them out very, very quickly from any sort of threat, nuclear threat. It set them back a decade. Isn't that interesting that that falls into a 7-year time frame, which gives them, which would make Israel feel like they had peace for a certain period of time. So that would be very interesting if that happened. It could happen very quickly prior to the revealing of the peace plan. Take them out so that they couldn't retaliate. But then what would Iran do? Well, at that point, then they would call on their ally Russia to do something, and that could very well be the hooks in the jaw to bring Russia down on Israel, along with its allies, along with whatever Iran could provide at that point in time in terms of military. And other nations, seeing a strike by the world superpower of the U.S. Could then say, well, you know what, we're going to jump on this bandwagon and we're going to come against Israel too. And that's what we see happening in Ezekiel 38 and 39. I'm going to leave there for today. I think this is very interesting about the potential and the scenarios that the U.S. is considering in terms of how it's going to deal with Iran. And these are all very, very much linked to last days battles, Ezekiel 38, Isaiah 17. We can see basically wars and strikes around the edges of these prophetic battles. But these prophetic battles haven't been completely fulfilled yet, and they will be. And so it makes sense that we would start seeing strikes around the edges of these things, around the edges of Damascus, and a buildup of military hardware against Iran just prior to the fulfillment of these prophecies. So I think we're very near. It wouldn't make sense to me that this would be 50 years out. The whole timeline of things, Israel in the land for 70 years. It doesn't make sense that there's another 50 years. It doesn't make sense that there's another 20 years. So I think the time is very close. We don't know exactly when, but I think this peace deal is going to be very fascinating. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll leave it there. Please hit that bell so you're notified of all the videos, and we'll see you guys in the next video.